Hello everyone, and welcome to my CBS Y&R Gossip channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Nick sat alone in the dim living room, the only light coming from the faint glow of the fireplace that flickered shadows across the walls. The house was silent, too silent, and that silence pressed down on him until it felt almost physical. His head throbbed, a dull ache that had been building for days, and tonight it was worse. He rubbed his temples, trying to ground himself, trying to focus on what was real. But reality had begun to blur in ways that terrified him. He heard footsteps behind him. "Nick," a familiar voice said softly. He turned, his heart skipping, and there she was. Sharon stood near the doorway, looking exactly as she had years ago, before everything went wrong. Her hair fell over her shoulders, her eyes warm and sad all at once. "You're not real," Nick whispered, even as he stood up and took a step toward her. Sharon smiled gently. "I'm as real as you want me to be." Nick shook his head. "No. I know this isn't happening. I know you're not here. But you miss me," she said, her voice soothing. "You miss the way things used to be. You miss when life made sense." Nick felt tears sting his eyes. He hadn't allowed himself to cry, not for a long time. He had been holding everything together by sheer force of will, pushing forward for his family, for his children, for everyone who depended on him. But now, faced with this impossible vision, the walls he'd built began to crack. "Stop," he said, pressing his hands to his head. "Please stop." Sharon stepped closer, close enough that Nick could almost feel her presence. "Almost. You're tired, Nick. You're carrying too much. You don't have to do it alone." Nick laughed bitterly. "That's the problem. I always do it alone. No matter who's supposed to be by my side, I end up alone." Her expression shifted, sadness deepening. "That's not true. You push people away when you're afraid." Nick opened his mouth to argue, but the words wouldn't come. The ache in his head surged, and suddenly Sharon's face flickered, like a distorted reflection in broken glass. "Go away," Nick pleaded. "I can't do this." The image dissolved, leaving the room empty once more. Nick collapsed back onto the couch, breathing hard, his hands shaking. He stared at the empty space where Sharon had stood, fear creeping into his chest. He knew, deep down, that what he was experiencing wasn't normal. He was hallucinating, and that realization scared him more than the visions themselves. Unbeknownst to Nick, someone else was listening. Phyllis stood just outside the partially open door, frozen in place. She had come by unannounced, worried after Nick hadn't returned her calls. At first, she'd been annoyed, ready to storm in and demand answers. But then she'd heard his voice. Heard him talking to someone who wasn't there. Her heart pounded as she leaned closer, careful not to make a sound. She heard him speak Sharon's name, heard the desperation in his voice, and a chill ran down her spine. "Oh my God," Phyllis whispered to herself. She watched through the crack in the door as Nick slumped on the couch, his face pale, his eyes unfocused. He looked lost, fragile in a way she hadn't seen before. For all their history, all their battles and reconciliations, she had never seen Nick like this. Phyllis felt a rush of conflicting emotions. Concern warred with jealousy, fear tangled with guilt. Part of her wanted to rush in, to wrap her arms around him and demand that he tell her what was wrong. Another part of her hesitated, knowing that barging in might only make things worse. She stayed where she was, listening, watching, trying to piece together what was happening. Inside the house, Nick closed his eyes, trying to steady his breathing. He told himself that the vision was a symptom of stress, exhaustion, maybe too many sleepless nights. He told himself it would pass. But the doubt lingered. What if it didn't? What if he was losing control? Phyllis made a decision. She quietly stepped back, pulling the door shut without a sound. Her mind raced as she slipped away, her heels clicking softly against the pavement once she was outside. Nick didn't know she was there. He didn't know she had seen him at his most vulnerable. And Phyllis wasn't sure whether that knowledge made her more determined to help him or more afraid of what she might discover if she did. Across town, Kane Ashby sat behind his desk, his fingers steepled as he stared at Billy Abbott. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Billy leaned back in his chair, trying to look relaxed, but his jaw was tight, his eyes wary. "You said this was urgent," he said. "So what's the big emergency?" Kane smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I'll get straight to the point. I need you to do something for me." Billy snorted. "That's vague. And knowing you, it's probably illegal." "Not illegal," Kane replied smoothly. "Just complicated." Billy raised an eyebrow. "You're not exactly selling it." Kane leaned forward, lowering his voice. "I need you to take care of someone." Billy's smirk faded. "Define take care of." Kane's eyes locked onto Billy's. "I need them dead." The words hung in the air, heavy and unmistakable. Billy laughed once, sharply. "You're joking." "I'm not," Kane said calmly. Billy stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "You've lost your mind. You can't seriously be asking me to commit murder." Kane didn't flinch. "I'm asking you to protect everything you care about." Billy shook his head. "This is insane. I don't kill people." "Maybe not," Kane said, standing as well. "But you've ruined lives. You've made reckless decisions that hurt people. This is just the next step." Billy clenched his fists. "You don't get to judge me. And you don't get to threaten me into doing your dirty work." Kane's expression hardened. "I'm not threatening you. I'm giving you a choice." Billy scoffed. "A choice between being a murderer and what? What's the alternative?" Kane walked around the desk, stopping just inches from Billy. "The alternative is that certain secrets come to light. Secrets that would destroy you, your family, your precious second chances." Billy swallowed hard. He hated that Kane was right. He hated that his past mistakes still had the power to ruin his future. "Who?" he asked quietly. Kane smiled again, satisfied. "I knew you'd see reason." "Who?" Billy repeated, his voice tight. Kane named the person without hesitation. Billy staggered back as if he'd been struck. "No. Absolutely not. You're asking too much." "I'm asking exactly what needs to be done," Kane said. "This person is a problem. And problems need solutions." Billy ran a hand through his hair, his mind racing. He thought of Victoria, of his children, of the fragile stability he'd fought so hard to build. He thought of the darkness he'd clawed his way out of and wondered if he was about to fall back in. "This won't end well," Billy said quietly. "It will end exactly the way I want it to," Kane replied. Meanwhile, Phyllis sat alone in her car, gripping the steering wheel as she tried to calm herself. Nick's haunted expression replayed in her mind over and over again. She had known Nick for years. She had seen him angry, determined, broken-hearted. But this was different. This was something deeper, something that threatened to unravel him completely. She debated her next move. Should she confront him directly? Should she tell someone else? Victoria, maybe, or even Victor. The thought of involving Victor made her stomach twist. But what if Nick needed help she couldn't provide? Phyllis started the engine, her decision still unresolved. All she knew was that she couldn't ignore what she'd seen. Not this time. Back at the house, Nick sat in the dark, staring into nothing. The silence pressed in again, and with it came a familiar dread. He half expected Sharon to reappear, to whisper reassurances or accusations. When she didn't, he felt an odd mix of relief and disappointment. He stood up unsteadily and walked to the kitchen, pouring himself a glass of water. His reflection in the mirror startled him. He looked exhausted, older than his years, his eyes shadowed by sleepless nights and unspoken fears. "What's happening to me?" he muttered. No one answered. As the night wore on, each of them wrestled with their own demons. Nick questioned his sanity, Phyllis weighed loyalty against fear, and Billy faced an impossible moral crossroads. And behind it all, Kane watched his plan unfold, confident that desperation would push everyone exactly where he wanted them. None of them could know how deeply their choices would intertwine, or how devastating the consequences would be once the truth finally came to light. Nick's mind was a swirling storm of confusion and fear. The lines between reality and illusion blurred as he found himself trapped in a relentless hallucination. Shadows danced at the edges of his vision, whispers echoed in his ears, and faces from his past morphed into sinister figures that haunted his every step. His heart pounded with a mixture of dread and desperation, each breath shallow and trembling. He was caught in a psychological battle, unable to distinguish what was real from what was merely a figment of his unraveling mind. Meanwhile, Phyllis, ever the vigilant observer, had taken it upon herself to watch from the shadows. She moved silently, a ghost in the background, listening intently to conversations not meant for her ears. Her motives were a tangled web of curiosity, concern, and something deeper, perhaps a sense of protectiveness or a desire to stay one step ahead. The secrets she uncovered weighed heavily on her, each whispered word a revelation that could change the course of many lives. Phyllis was well aware that knowledge was power, and she wielded it carefully, sometimes with a hint of guilt, but always with resolve. In another corner of this complex tapestry, Kane found himself at a crossroads of loyalty and morality. His expression was hard, eyes sharp as he delivered a chilling assignment to Billy. The mission was clear yet terrifying, a directive that involved a calculated act of violence, a murder that would ripple through their world with consequences no one could ignore. Kane's voice was steady, betraying no hesitation, but beneath the surface lay a storm of conflicting emotions. He knew the stakes were high, and every decision carried the weight of irrevocable change. Billy, caught in the gravity of the moment, grappled with the enormity of the task laid before him. The path ahead was fraught with danger, and the line between duty and conscience blurred under the harsh glare of reality. As the days unfolded, Nick's hallucinations grew more vivid and disturbing. Faces from his past confronted him with accusations and regrets, twisting memories into nightmares. He stumbled through familiar places that now seemed alien and threatening, his sense of self eroding with each passing moment. The torment inside his mind was relentless, a battle he fought alone in the silence of his thoughts. Friends and family noticed the change, their concern mounting as Nick withdrew further into himself, a prisoner of his own unraveling psyche. Phyllis, from her secret vantage point, observed the subtle shifts in Nick's behavior. She recognized the signs of deep distress and understood the danger of leaving him to face this alone. Her eavesdropping was not just an act of curiosity but a desperate attempt to gather information, to find a way to reach him before it was too late. Each secret she overheard added pieces to the puzzle, revealing hidden fears and vulnerabilities that Nick struggled to express. Phyllis wrestled with the ethical dilemma of her actions, torn between respecting privacy and the urgent need to intervene. In the shadows of this unfolding drama, Kane's plan moved forward. He met with Billy in a secluded place, their conversation heavy with unspoken tension. Kane's instructions were precise, the gravity of the mission sinking deep into Billy's conscience. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him, each word from Kane a reminder of the irreversible step they were about to take. Billy's mind raced with doubts and fears, the moral conflict swirling within him threatening to overwhelm his resolve. Yet, the bonds of loyalty and the pressure of circumstances held him in place, a reluctant participant in a dangerous game. The tension between these intertwined lives reached a crescendo as Nick's hallucinations began to invade his waking moments. He saw things that weren't there, heard voices that whispered dark truths, and felt the walls closing in around him. His sense of reality shattered, leaving him vulnerable and exposed. Those around him struggled to break through the fog, their attempts met with resistance and confusion. The fragile threads of trust and connection frayed under the strain, leaving Nick isolated in a world that seemed to turn against him. Phyllis's secret surveillance became a lifeline, a source of insight and hope. She pieced together the fragments of Nick's turmoil, searching for a way to anchor him back to reality. Her presence, though hidden, was a steady force, a reminder that he was not alone. The knowledge she gained was both a burden and a gift, a key to unlocking the darkness that enveloped Nick's mind. In her heart, Phyllis hoped that the truth she uncovered would be enough to save him from the abyss. At the same time, Kane's directive loomed over Billy like a shadow of impending doom. The mission to commit murder was not just a task, it was a test of character and loyalty that threatened to consume them both. Billy wrestled with the decision, caught between the demands of Kane's authority and the voice of his own conscience. The consequences of failure or refusal were unspoken but understood: danger, betrayal, and the collapse of everything they held dear. The stakes were life and death, and the choices made would echo through their lives forever. As the narrative unfolded, the characters found themselves entangled in a web of secrets, lies, and moral dilemmas. Nick's hallucinations were a symptom of deeper wounds, a manifestation of unresolved trauma and fear. Phyllis's eavesdropping revealed the hidden layers of pain and conflict that shaped their world. Kane's murder assignment exposed the dark undercurrents of power and control that threatened to engulf them all. Each thread of the story wove together, creating a complex portrait of human struggle, resilience, and the quest for redemption. Nick's journey through his hallucinations was a descent into the unknown, a confrontation with his own demons and fears. The faces that haunted him were echoes of past mistakes and lost opportunities, each one a reminder of the price he had paid. His mind became a battlefield where hope and despair clashed, and the fight for sanity was a daily struggle. The support of those around him was fragile, tested by the intensity of his condition and the secrets he kept hidden. The path to recovery was uncertain, marked by setbacks and moments of clarity that flickered like fragile flames in the darkness. Phyllis's role as a silent guardian was both a blessing and a curse. Her ability to listen without being seen gave her access to truths that others missed, but it also placed her in a position of immense responsibility. She carried the burden of knowledge, knowing that every secret she uncovered could change the course of events. Her actions were driven by a mix of loyalty, love, and the desire to protect those she cared about. Yet, the line between intervention and intrusion was delicate, and the consequences of her choices were unpredictable. Kane's decision to assign Billy a murder mission was a turning point that revealed the harsh realities of their world. It was a moment that tested the limits of friendship and trust, exposing the vulnerabilities beneath the surface of loyalty. Billy's struggle to reconcile his sense of right and wrong with the demands placed upon him was a poignant reflection of the human capacity for both courage and fear. The mission was more than a task. It was a crucible that would define their futures and challenge their very identities. As the story progressed, the interplay between these characters highlighted the complexity of human relationships and the impact of secrets and decisions. Nick's hallucinations were a metaphor for the hidden struggles that many face, a reminder that mental health is a fragile and vital aspect of life. Phyllis's eavesdropping underscored the power of information and the ethical dilemmas that come with it. Kane's assignment to Billy illustrated the darker side of loyalty and the consequences of actions taken in the name of protection or control. The emotional intensity of the narrative was heightened by the characters' inner conflicts and external pressures. Nick's hallucinations created a sense of urgency and vulnerability, drawing empathy from those who witnessed his suffering. Phyllis's secret observations added layers of tension and anticipation, as the audience waited to see how her knowledge would influence the unfolding events. Kane and Billy's dynamic introduced an element of suspense and danger, as the implications of the murder mission unfolded in unpredictable ways. Throughout the story, themes of trust, betrayal, loyalty, and redemption were explored in depth. Nick's struggle with his hallucinations was a journey toward healing and self-understanding, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Phyllis's role as an observer and protector highlighted the complexities of human connection and the sacrifices made in the name of love and friendship. Kane's decision to involve Billy in such a dark mission revealed the moral ambiguities and difficult choices that arise in extreme circumstances. The narrative also delved into the psychological and emotional impact of trauma and secrecy. Nick's hallucinations were a manifestation of unresolved pain and fear, a call for help that went beyond words. Phyllis's eavesdropping was both a means of gaining insight and a source of ethical conflict, as she navigated the fine line between helping and harming. Kane's assignment to Billy was a reflection of the harsh realities that sometimes force individuals to confront their own limits and make impossible decisions. As the story reached its climax, the characters were forced to confront the consequences of their actions and the truths they had uncovered. Nick's battle with his hallucinations became a fight for survival and redemption, a path toward reclaiming his life and identity. Phyllis's role as a secret witness gave her the power to influence events in ways she had never imagined, shaping the destinies of those around her. Kane and Billy faced the ultimate test of loyalty and morality, their choices defining the line between right and wrong. The resolution of the story was marked by moments of revelation, forgiveness, and transformation. Nick's journey through hallucination and fear ended with a newfound clarity and strength, supported by those who refused to give up on him. Phyllis's secret eavesdropping evolved into a catalyst for change, as the truth she uncovered helped to heal wounds and bridge divides. Kane and Billy's mission, though fraught with danger and moral complexity, led to a deeper understanding of themselves and the bonds that held them together. In the end, the story was a powerful exploration of the human condition, capturing the struggles, triumphs, and complexities of life. It was a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is hope and the possibility of redemption. The characters' journeys were a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the enduring power of love, loyalty, and truth. Through the intertwined lives of Nick, Phyllis, Kane, and Billy, the narrative painted a vivid picture of resilience and the quest for meaning in a world filled with challenges and secrets.